Okay, so today's class basically is just an introduction class. It's just a demo class to try and understand exactly what the course is about. Um, Obviously, for those who have already attempted this paper, you definitely know what the course is about. But for the ones who will be attempting it for the first time, um, see taxation. First of all, let me make it clear that the the course that we're studying is basically based on the UK legal system. All right. It's UK taxation that we're studying. It's not specific to any other country. It's specific to UK only. All right. Um, Obviously, since it's something that is part of the law, um, the legal authorities, especially when we talk about within the UK, you've got the House of Commons and the House of Lords, right? They indulge into um, into the lawmaking process, basically, and as a result, they come up with a law for taxation and exactly how to tax people of their own country, how to tax people who are not living in their country and are overseas residents, for example, but they're still earning some kind of UK income. They're still using the resources in UK and they're generating an income out of it. Taxation on what will happen if the wealth is transferred from one individual to another. Taxation on, let's say, consumption. Taxation on taxation for the companies, right? So all of this, and just I just talked about various kinds of taxes. This is all part of your syllabus, which I'm going to discuss in a bit. Okay. What we need to understand is that the basis for our course is the UK legal system. All right. We need to understand the taxation of UK, which will be tested in your exam, obviously. Right now, this obviously leads to,
Sir,
yes,
can you tell how the exam?
I'm coming to that. It's all part of the today's class, part of today's class. Don't worry about it. I'll come to that in a bit. Okay. See, this is a fundamental paper. Skill level, definitely you have to give it. There's no option. You cannot skip it, not until you've got an exemption for this paper, right? But if you got an exemption, you wouldn't be here. So the thing is that it's something that you have to prepare for. And then it definitely leads to an advanced taxation paper at your professional level, which is an option, which if you want to give it, you can. Students who want to further pursue ICAEW, they give ATX because they get exemptions after giving ATX and ACCA. So it's an option. In fact, within the optionals, within 4 optional papers, right, this paper has the highest passing ratio on average. Okay. So you can say that it's one of the easiest optional professional papers to pass. Okay. Based on obviously the historical passing ratios. Now, I briefly explained and in fact said out loud what the taxes are that we're dealing with. And I'm going to show you from my notes as well, right? I'm going to give you an overview of my notes as well so that you understand what resources we'll be using to prepare for the exam. Okay. You've got the basic income tax computation that basically includes how tax is computed, various types of taxes, not just direct taxes, but various types of taxes, how it's computed, specific, like I said, to UK. Okay. Different types of incomes and their respective taxes. For example, if someone is an employee in a company, then your taxation would be different from someone who's self-employed, someone who's running a business. And then someone who's running a business which is not registered as a company would have different taxes as compared to someone who has a registered company, for example. Okay. Similarly, let's say when wealth is transferred from one generation to the other, in countries like India, for example, in countries like in the Asian region, the MENA region, there's no such tax. But in UK, there's a very high tax on transferring wealth. Okay. So that's also one type of, I don't call it income. I call it the transfer of wealth is actually taxed. Okay, so that's also one type of tax which falls under the stream of capital taxes. Okay, then you've got corporation tax, taxation of companies. There are, if you've studied F3, which is financial accounting, or you've studied financial reporting, FR, you'd know that there is certain level of, there are different group structures basically. One of them is when you consolidate, right? So when you form a group, the taxation could be different as compared to a single entity taxation. Okay, so that's a perspective, that's an aspect that we'll be looking at. Then you've got value added tax. Value added tax is the second name for value added tax is GST, general sales tax, right? So this is also one kind of tax that we'll be looking at. Obviously, this comes under the category of indirect taxation. See, there are certain, in fact, let me clarify it over here, because obviously we need to utilize this time to try and understand the basics, very basics of taxation. You've got two categories of taxes. You've got direct tax and you've got indirect tax. All right. Direct tax is where the income is taxed, and indirect tax is where consumption is taxed. There's a difference. Consumption is taxed. The first type of tax would be where, let's say, you have an income of 1,000 pounds. All right. And the government decides to take away 20% of that income. You'll be left with 800 pounds. All right. You'll be left with 800 pounds. So the 200, the difference is actually called a direct tax. In this case, since it's being applied on income, so it's income tax. Okay. Whereas indirect tax is, like I mentioned, it's applied on consumption. Consumption is, for example, the government may not tax your income, but it will tax, let's say, you want to consume a water bottle. All right. So let's say the cost to a consumer of a water bottle is £5, but the government decides to tax it because it wants to discourage people from consuming bottled water. Use a tap water. Bottled water, it wants to discourage it, for example. So it will apply, let's say, a 20% tax on it, right? 1.2 means addition of 20%, correct? Mathematically, it means addition of 20%. So let's simply calculate it. So 20%, for example, that's £1, correct? So the total cost to consumer will now be £6. Over here, in the first case, you had £800 as disposable income to buy a water bottle that would have cost you £5, for example. But in this case, in the case of indirect taxation, you've got entire £1,000, but this time the cost of the water bottle is not £5, it's £6, because the government has decided to tax this consumption. Make sense? So this is basically a, I would call it a basic benchmark between two types of taxes. Value added tax falls under the category of indirect taxation, whereas other income taxes, for example, fall in the category of direct taxation, right? And then finally, you've got self-assessment and penalties. Self-assessment penalties is like, you have to file your return. You have to tell the government your source of income. You have to tell the government how much income you earned, what exactly, in what terms you earned that income. For example, dividend, for example, interest, for example, in terms of cash, for example, in terms of business income or employment income or pension income, whatever it is, right? There are a lot of categories through which you can earn income, and you need to disclose it to the government on a timely manner, right? If you don't do that in a timely manner, you'll be penalized. And obviously, there are certain level of penalties that are applied, which you need to know for your exam. Okay, so this is basically your syllabus outline. Okay, this is your exam structure. Number one, the total marks will be 100. Number two, it's a CBE, a computer based examination. No writing with a pen. You don't even need a pen, in fact. Okay, for the CBE exam, the examiner uses two kinds of softwares, two kinds of software basically. Number one is your Microsoft Word, and the other one is your Excel. You don't need PowerPoint and all these things. You just need to have a good grip on Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel to get a good feel of what the examination or the exam would look like. You can access the ACCA platform from accglobal.com, and that will definitely that will give you a sense of what it will look like. And obviously you'll have different tabs on the exams, on the examination, tabs related to the question, tabs that will give you access to the Word document, tabs that will give you access to the Excel sheet. Excel sheet is basically used for all calculations. Word is to put out, to jot down your answers, for explanations, for discussions, for advice, and all these things. Okay, definitely. There are questions in which you have to use your calculations to give an advice or to explain a situation. So what you do is you use Excel for the calculations. Obviously, the referral to the question is, let's say, for example, you're working on section C, question number 2, for example, right? The second question of section C. In that case, you will refer it both on Excel and on Word so that the examiner can easily relate to what you're working on. Okay. Duration of the exam is 3 hours, 180 minutes. So if you basically bifurcate the, if you try to calculate it, that's approximately 1.8 minutes per mark. Okay. So 3 hours means 180 minutes. Divide by 100 marks. That is 1.8 minute per mark, right? How to use this 1.8 minute per mark, obviously I'm going to explain it to you when we start practicing. Okay, you've got 3 sections. You've got section A, section B, and section C. Section A has 15 OTQs, objective test questions. These are like MCQs. Small case, 4 options. Small case, fill in the blanks. Small case, choose the right option. So, like out of a drop down menu, you'll have to choose the right option. So this is the mix that you will get in section A. That means you will get, let's say, fill in the blanks. You can get, choose 1 out of 4, 2 out of 5, just like a normal MCQ, or you may also get a drop down menu out of which you'll have to. Drop down menu is basically its type of fill in the blank, right? Where there's a blank, you'll get a drop down menu and you'll have to choose the right option. Okay. So each OTQ is for 2 marks. You get it right, you get 2, you get it wrong, 0. Okay. There's no negative marking in ACCA, right? So 15 to 2 is 30 marks for section A. Section B, you've got objective case questions. That means you will get a small case, and out of those cases, within those cases, you'll have 5 questions each. Okay, so it's basically total 3 cases. Each case will have 5 questions, and each question will have a weight of 2 marks, right? So that means each question, each case is for 10 marks, and you've got 3 cases altogether. So that's 30, right? So this is what your, basis will look like. Section C, you've got 3 CRQs. CRQs are basically responsive questions where you have to use both Excel and Word. Okay, these are responsive questions. These are not just simply MCQs or MTQs. These are, you'll have to jot down the answer, you'll have to explain your working and all these things, right? One CRQ is for 10 mark, and 2 CRQs are for each is for 15 marks, right? So this makes it, the total section, this over here is for 40 marks. Okay, the examiner makes it easy for us by telling us where these 2 big CRQs will come from. One from income tax, any type of income. It could be any type of income. It could be multiple incomes as well, for one individual, for a family. Family means husband and wife, for example. Could be multiple incomes as well, right? And one from the corporation tax. Now that could be a single entity corporation tax, it could be a group corporation tax. It obviously is at the discretion of the examiner. You cannot identify that, you cannot determine that before the exam, right? So this is basically an exam structure. Like I said, and I'll repeat, it's all CBE, computer based examination. So you need to be well versed with Word and Excel, and definitely these are the two softwares that we will be using during our exam kit practice. All right, because I don't encourage pen and calculators in my class. What I encourage is Word and Excel. I don't encourage writing on a paper. Okay, if you want to take down notes, and let's say this is a class going on, you want to take down notes, open up a Word document in your on your laptop or your PC and type out the notes. Don't write it down, because see, writing is now obsolete. Whatever you do prior to the exam leads to, one step closer to the passing mark. Simple as that. You write down the notes, for example, additional pointers that you might find interesting, or something that you think would be of help to you, and you decide to write it down. Don't do it. Open up a Word document, start typing it. Okay, because that will improve your typing speed as well. And plus, it will make you more comfortable with a keyboard as compared to a pen. Being comfortable with a pen, like I said, it's now obsolete. No need to be comfortable with a pen. You need to be comfortable with the keyboard. All right. Now, the resources that we'll use it's obviously the lectures that I'll be giving you. For the lectures, you will have 2 live classes and 1 recorded class. Okay. After this, from somewhere around 10th of October, you'll have 3 live classes and 1 recorded class. And trust me, it's not a lot of burden. Okay. Why isn't it a lot of burden? Because the topics, number one, are bifurcated, so it's not jumbled up. Number two, it's easy to study. Sometimes, I've literally had students who enrolled for live classes, but they couldn't take live classes, especially when there was COVID. Why? Because let's say for some reason, they were overburdened with work just because they were working from home. Okay. So what we need to understand is that it's not about my comfort, it's about your comfort. What I have to look at is your comfort, because you're the one giving the paper, not me. Okay. So recorded class is kept for specifically for those students who cannot find enough time to attend 3 live classes in a week. But yes, like I said, somewhere from mid-October, I'll have to add 1 more live class, or if, let's say, depends on um, what the registered student's preference is, I might just add 1 more recorded class. It depends. Like I said, it depends on you guys. So whatever you're comfortable with. It's not about my comfort, it's about your comfort over here, right? The Kaplan book reading is always recommended. If anyone tells you otherwise, no words for them. No words of, at least no words for, no words of appreciation for them. Okay. So book is always recommended. It's always recommended that you read the book, because there are illustrations, there are test your understandings, there are a lot of other things that you come across when you're reading a book, not from the content point of view, because that is something we'll be covering in our lectures and from my notes, but it's like illustrations have a lot of different kind of information. They're being tested, and you're actually being tested, your concept is being tested. So that's one thing. Kaplan kit we'll use for the practice. And finally, the technical articles is it's like a very beautiful resource that an examiner has, and the ACC as a whole, they've given us. And unfortunately, students, I've seen a lot of students who don't even know what technical articles are. They've come up till F6, which is taxation. They've passed a double A and FM and PM and FR and all these papers. They left with TX probably within the fundamental stage, and they don't even know what technical articles are and where to find them. Um, in fact, I'll be the one sending you guys the technical articles. I'll be the one covering the technical articles in my class. Okay. So, and the reason behind this is because it's been written by the examiner. And when something is written by the examiners or a resource given to you by the exam, see, Kaplan book or kit is not directly coming from the examiner. Okay, kit is obviously it's past exam questions amended for current law, amended to cater the current law. I agree, but book is not directly coming from the examiner. But these technical articles are literally written by the examining team. So you get, if you're a smart student, you'll know how to use this resource. Why? Because you get to know the tone of the examiner, you get to sense the tone of the examiner, and you can literally adapt to it if you're willing to do that. I'm not asking about adoption, I'm telling you about adaptation. See, adapting is different as compared to adoption. Okay, so you don't need to adopt, because that's just going to waste your time. You need to adapt to that situation. So technical articles is a very good resource. Apart from these resources, which you will have access to, are my notes, which I'm going to show you in a bit. Okay, and this is what our approach will be, topic by topic. Lectures means that first we'll do one topic, then we'll go towards the kit practice. Okay, and then we'll move on to the second topic. Okay, we'll basically do revision for important topics towards then, not for the entire course, because you'll obviously have access to the recorded lectures, all recorded lectures. You guys will have access to all recorded lectures. All right. Even of the live lectures, you'll have access to the recorded lectures. And I'm going to send you once students get registered, I'm going to send you guys the Google Classroom link. Okay, all recorded lectures are on Google Classroom, so you'll have access to it. And if you want to continue at your own pace, you can do that as well. Let's say you find the live class a bit slow, you can continue at your own pace, your choice. Okay, mock will finally help us prepare to get this position. Does not indicate that you need to get the highest achievement. It means that you need to be at a comfortable position to get to get a pass with a good margin of safety. That's all. Margin of safety is how how far you're from 50, like on the right side. So 60, 65, 70, 75, whatever it is, right? Let me show you my notes. These are the notes that you will get. All right, like this includes everything. Obviously, by looking at it, you see a lot of numbers and content and stuff. We'll do it bit by bit, so that, and definitely we'll do bit by bit, because that makes sense. This is inheritance tax, capital gains tax. There are various topics. Obviously, these are not all the topics. I've just opened it up so that you guys get a sense of what my notes look like. And so this is your corporation tax, right? So you'll have access to all these things. If you guys don't want to, let's say, get into the book reading part, I'll definitely be recommending some pages to read, some chapters to read. Not chapters, I would say one or two chapters, basically, not a lot of chapters, because everything is covered in my content, in my notes, in my lectures, right? So the reason why I would really like you guys to read the chapters that I'll recommend is because it's been written beautifully. That's all. Simple as that. That's we have see you need to understand that there's a difference between the writer of a book and someone who's prepared these notes. Simple as that. The ones who are writing a book, they obviously are, and that's a fact. It's nothing to be ashamed of, from my end, especially from a lecturer's end. Nothing to be ashamed of. See, the words, the level of explanation that simple words can give you versus the level of explanation that I can give you, that's obviously different. Just like the level of detail my notes have versus the level of detail the book has, it'd be different. right? But like I said, those are just words. The explanation coming out of my mouth would be definitely to a different, in a different scenario, it would be a different case altogether. Okay. So every resource has its own benefit. That's the thing. So if you're smart enough to use the resource, I'm not saying just go out and memorize the entire book, of no use. Why? Because you memorize the entire book, the amount of time it will take you to memorize the book, you could have just read through it, memorized all the important points, practiced, go into the exam, get somewhere around 75, 80. Honestly, why memorize the entire book? Why waste the time to memorize the entire book where there's a lot of information that is irrelevant to the extent where you don't need to memorize, it will be given to you in the exam. Why memorize it? Or you could have easily memorized it by practicing again and again. So that's 2 in 1. Make sense? So your approach as a student, the way you study, and yes, the amount you put in and the effort you put in, the amount of time you put in and the effort you put in definitely will determine your pass, right? um Apart from this, you see, my target, I last in the last attempt I got a question from a student which I would like to cater over here, is that when you're teaching, what target do you have in mind? Like, what target do you have regarding the students? How much do you want them to achieve in the exam? For me, anywhere above 50, anywhere 50 and above is good. You get 100, I'll be very happy. You get a 50, I'll be happy. In fact, I'll be very happy again. The reason is, I literally have students who are very smart, and I cannot even tell you how smart they are. Okay, they grasp the concept so fast. In fact, I don't even need to give an example in the grasp situation. But when they go into an exam situation, they panic, and they land somewhere around 55, 52, 60, 58, right? So the point is, I know what those students are, I know what they're capable of. Okay, this exam, the 3-hour exam, will not determine your fate. It won't determine what you will be in the future. It's just a stepping stone, simple as that. If you take a lot of stress, you need to get 80 because there's peer pressure or someone else is telling you to get 80 or more, then you'll struggle with yourself. You'll fight, against your own will, in fact, I would say, as a student. Because see, anywhere above 50 is a good enough stepping stone. All right. So the thing is that, and this is something I always tell my students, don't put yourself in a lot of pressure. Make it part of your routine. This is something that you need to do because you have to pass the papers. That's an obvious thing. You need to make sure, because see, tax is a paper which is, there's nothing like tax in ACCA. Why? Because there are a lot of little things that you have to memorize, like literally memorize. Okay, I'll just give you one example. The number of seats on a bus. If you want to get a tax relief as an employee, in the law there is a number of seats of a bus in which you're traveling to and from the employer's premises. You need to memorize that if you want to get a relief. It's called exempt benefit, for example. So that's the level of detail. I agree, because that's law. See, when you're dealing with law, detail is inevitable. Okay, but if you put yourself in a lot of stress that you can't memorize, there are a lot of ways to memorize it, not just by reading it again and again and again and again. If you feel that you're in too much stress, you come to me and you discuss with me, this strategy is not working for me, can you tell me, or can you guide me with some other strategy? Definitely, I'll be there and I'll guide you. Okay, so the thing is that, from the next class onwards, we'll be starting a course with basic income tax computation. And yes, there are a few topics before basic income tax computation which I would like to discuss. For example, ethics, or for example, um, you know, uh, tax evasion and tax avoidance, I'll obviously give a bit more, I'll add a bit more detail to direct versus indirect taxation. All right. So from the next class onwards, we'll start our course. Any questions? You guys can put out on the chat, or you guys can one by one, please unmute yourselves and ask if you have any questions. No questions? I'm assuming that you guys get everything and you guys get the course of action. All right. So hopefully I'll see you guys in the first class now.